Alrighty, so this is definitely a week where all MLS coaches, teams, and even fans are going to be very frustrated because this, unfortunately, is the week where every single teams is going to miss. Well, actually, not every single team. There's actually one specific team that are not going to be missing players due to international duty. But before we actually kind of get into the discussion of whether or not if MLS should do something about that, because I think that's just a very easy rabbit hole that we can talk about 5 or even 10 minutes talking about it, but I won't, just for the sake of actually getting to the thing we're going to talk about in this video, which is previewing these games. I do think that the league maybe need to look into, especially with the way that this year, in years past, I have heard that teams have been able to get the option of whether or not they want to play during the international break, and that if you don't play during the international break, then you're basically playing in the middle of the week. This year, teams don't even have that option because of this Apple TV deal, and as you can see, there are going to be some teams that is going to be incredibly shorthanded coming in to their matches of match week number 5. But that being said, let us actually get into the first game. And of course, all these games is happening on Saturday, and it's pretty much just like last week, where we get the one early game, and then the rest of the game is happening on Saturday night. And we start off with the Portland Timbers versus the LA Galaxy. You notice I'm wearing the new LA Galaxy jersey that just came in today, and I cannot wait to wear this because I do think that this is one of the best jerseys that was released this season. But I would also say that this, is it early to say that it's a desperation derby? I mean, I've always mentioned throughout the season there's always a desperation derby every week, and this feels like it's a desperation derby because both of these fan bases are not happy of how their team is. The Timbers, besides that one win that they had on opening weekend, it's been an absolute disaster the last 3 weeks, and I think last week was kind of the rock bottom point when they lost 5-1 to Atlanta United, and then the LA Galaxy, the distraction with the protests going on off the field, and not to mention having a very frustrating result against the Whitecaps, dropping points at home in a game that you would think that the Galaxy should be able to get all 3 points in their season opener, and they're still searching for the first win of the season. Now this game will start at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, but we know the actual kickoff will be 1:55 p.m. Pacific because this game is taking place on Big Fox alongside with Apple TV. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, it's actually very close. 14, 7, and 13, the all-time meeting, slightly in favor of the Galaxy. And then now we get to talk about players on international duty. And again, keep in mind, there's going to be some teams that they're going to miss some really key players. For the Timbers, they've always been a team that's not really that harmed in terms of international players leaving on international duty. The only player that's on international duty is Juan David Mosquera. But for the Galaxy, you got Fekirez, Dejan Joveljic, Calvin Leerdam, and Eric Zavaleta as the players that is missing on international duty. Losing Joveljic is definitely huge because, Chicharito's still not available for this Galaxy team. So there's going to be a big question mark of who actually is going to be playing the striker position for this team. But yeah, again, it is a desperation derby. Both of these teams desperately need all 3 points because of how bad of a start of the season, and a season where both of these teams had some hope that they were going to do well in the league, make the playoffs, or even go into a deep playoff run. And so far in the beginning of the season, it just doesn't seem like that is the case. But moving on, we got Charlotte FC versus the New York Red Bulls. So Charlotte, they're fresh off their first win of the season. In fact, both of these teams are fresh off of their first win of the season. Charlotte, of course, went on the road to beat Orlando City, while the Red Bulls were able to have a come from behind win against the Columbus Crew. As this is going to be the first of 5 games, I think is going to be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 games. That's going to be taking place at times. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 2-0-1 in favor of the New York Red Bulls. The only players that's on international duty is Karol Świderski for Charlotte. For the Red Bulls, they are going to miss a couple of key pieces, Corey Burke and Christian Castries Jr. and Seven Valda also not available for this team because of international duty. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who can keep that momentum after getting that first win of the season. I mean, I'm pretty sure for both of these teams, it must feel so good for them to finally getting their first win of the season after both of these teams were also in the same situation that I mentioned the Timbers and the Galaxy find themselves in. have some playoffs aspiration, and it has just not got off to a good start. So let's see who can, of course, continue the momentum in this one. But moving on, in the next one, we have the Columbus Crew versus Atlanta United, and this is another one of those matchup where it could have been a very high-ended matchup if it wasn't for players missing on international duty. I mean, this is, of course, is not the only one that I'll say that are kind of a matchup that could be a marquee matchup if only we have the most important player being available in this one. But the Crew coming into this one, 1-1 and 2, they're facing it against Atlanta team that is red hot right now, 3-1 and all and fresh off of a 5-1 beatdown that they had against the Portland Timbers. All-time meeting, 6 wins apiece and 2 draws between both of these teams, and player on international duty, you got Milo Deganek, Eloy Rome, and Lucas Arian not available for the Crew. Yeah, those are three big pieces. I mean, one of them, their starting center back, one of them, their starting goalkeeper, and then Lucas Arian. I mean, they're already without Cucho Hernandez. So losing Lucas Arian, that is gonna be a backbreaker for them, and that, there is the question of where is the goals going to come from this team. But for Atlanta, they also have a lot of players that is missing due to international duty. Luis Abram not available. Thiago Amada, of course, he actually scored a goal for Argentina in that friendly against Panama, and just continued to show that his stock is rising in a rate where we could see a record-breaking transfer if Thiago Amada is going to be sold off to another team in Europe. Then you got Cho Etienne Jr., Derek Etienne Jr., Ronald Hernandez, Giacomakis, and also Miles Robinson not available for this team. So yeah, that's definitely some big pieces that Atlanta is going to lose this for this game. But overall, again, I won't be surprised if this maybe be a scoreless draw, with the way that, again, both of these teams are missing some key pieces on the attacking end, and that I also won't be surprised we might see some of these games that, again, it is just so unfortunate that if we actually had all those players that is not missing on international duty, that would have been a great matchup, and especially for Atlanta. We talk about that they look like they're truly back after that 5-1 win against the Timbers. We'll see whether that is the case now that they go on the road against a Columbus team that don't lose a lot of games when they're playing at home in front of their faithful at Lower.com Field. With that being said, moving on, we got DC United versus the New England Revolution. So DC 1-1 and 2, while New England 3-0 and 1. All-time meeting 39, 16, and 36. That is the all-time meeting record that DC slightly has in favor. Player on international duty, you got Fletcher and Victor Paulson not available for DC, and for New England, Dylan Barrero and Christian McCoon not available for them in this games. And this, unlike the last one, there's really much key starters that is missing for this team. Well, maybe besides Victor Paulson, that is a regular starter for this DC team. But yeah, this should be an interesting game, and it's a game that I think the visitor is going to be favorites, knowing the fact that the Revs, after that good bounce back win that they had at home, they're looking to try to get another win against a DC team that, I mean, I think this season for DC has kind of what I expected this team is. There's been some inconsistency with this team. There's times where they look like a playoff team at one point, and then at the next point they look like a team that maybe is going to win the wooden spoon once again. And I just feel like that's just kind of the season for this DC team. And unfortunately, because of their inconsistent, they're kind of inconsistent in a bad way, where they're not picking up the points that they needed to potentially make a playoff push for this season. But moving on, in the next match, we got Inter Miami versus the Chicago Fire. So for Inter Miami, they have definitely fall back down to earth after suffering back-to-back road loss with a 2-0-2 record, while the Chicago Fire, well, they were never lift off. I mean, they're still stuck in a familiar territory where many people predicted them to be, which is dead last in the Eastern Conference, and a team that is doing very Chicago Fire-esque kind of thing, blowing multiple goal lead at home, and also looking good on the road, but also making some boneheaded play that cost them the game, and that's why they're 0-2 and 1 so far. 7:30, or actually not 7:30. Mentioned already, this game is 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. But in terms of the all-time meeting, Chicago does have the all-time meeting, but this is only the fifth meeting between both of these teams. But it's a 2-1 and 1 in favor of the Chicago Fire. Player on international duty, you got Esco now, Joseph Martinez and Robert Taylor not available for Miami in this one. For Chicago, Miguel Navarro and Jr. not available for the Chicago Fire in this one. But for Inter Miami, this is a good one for, for them to bounce back after, I think the last two games, you can definitely see that this is an Inter Miami team that, I don't want to say that they play bad in both all those games, but if you're going to be a team that is going to maybe be one of the surprise and maybe be a team that could get yourself into the playoffs. Those are kind of the road games that they need to win. I mean, those two road game. I mean, yes, the NYCFC one was brutal, but the one against Toronto has to hurt because TFC was very injured and yet they somehow still were able to get the victory. But we'll see whether or not if they can bounce back, especially against a lowly Chicago team. That again, this is kind of an expected season for the Chicago Fire, and I don't know if things are going to change with this team in the nearby future. But now moving on in the next match, and again, this is similar to the Columbus versus Atlanta game. It's a matchup that was very mouth-watering until you realize how many players are missing on international duty. In fact, I think this is the game where we have the most players that is missing on international duty. We talked about the Union before; they're potentially going to have 8 guys missing on international duty, and the same goes for Orlando City. Coming into this game, the Union 2-0-2, while Orlando 1-2-1. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, as I mentioned before. And I think similar to the game between the Timbers versus the Galaxy, depending on who you ask, maybe it could be a desperation derby because again, these are two teams that's supposed to be the two teams that could be near the top of the Eastern Conference, and they're not right now. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they are currently in CCL. If you want to also remember that and put that as a grain of salt, but in terms of the all-time meeting, 8-5-5 that the Union has over Orlando City. And in terms of players on international duty, oh boy, this is where we begin to talk about players not available. So we start with Brandon Craig, Daniel Gastak, Damian Lowe, Jose Martinez, Jack McGlynn, and Quinn Sullivan not available for the Philadelphia Union. For Orlando City, you got Ketty Gina, Freeman, Matt Holiday, Pedro Galese, Loyola, Facu Torres, and Thomas Williams not available for Orlando City in this game. And yeah, again, these are some really key pieces that is missing for both teams. I mean, both of these teams have pretty much some part of their attack, their midfield, and their defense just not available in this one. Although, for the Union, there is definitely a question to see whether or not if they're going to get Andre Blake back as soon as possible, because I have heard that there has been reports suggesting that he could actually be ready as soon as this game against Orlando City. But I think for Jim Curran's sake, I don't think he's gonna play him. I mean, again, this is a game that they're just missing so many guys on international duty. They're gonna try to maybe grind this one out, and that's kind of the thing that the Union can do sometimes. They can win ugly at times, and I won't be surprised this could be again just like the Columbus and Atlanta game. This could be a game that I could see there maybe not be any goals that is featured with just the way that there's a lot of key players missing for both of these teams coming into this game. But now moving on in the next one, we got Austin FC versus the Colorado Rapids. So for Austin, last week, yeah, it was a brutal week for them after unable to overcome a 3-0 deficit against Violeta, and then they follow up with another loss over the weekend. The good news is they do play against the Colorado Rapids, who is right now are the worst team in the Western Conference with an 0-1-3 record, while Austin 2-0-2, and this is the first of I believe 5 games that's going to be happening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. A lot of games that are taking place in the Central Time Zone. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 2 wins apiece for both of these teams and 1 draw apiece. Player on international duty, Austin will not have Visalem and Owen Wolf, which yeah, that does gives the question of who exactly is going to play center back. I mean, I know they recently have signed themselves a center back, but I don't know if he is going to be ready enough to be playing for this Austin team straight away. So unfortunately, they're going to have to rely on either Kip Keller and Amro Tarek. And I think for Austin's sake, maybe they'll probably go with Kip Keller because Austin fans, as bad as Kip Keller moment was, I think a lot. I can say that there's a lot of Austin fans that are more or started to be more they feel more forgiven for a Kip Keller mistake than what we saw with Armor Tarek. I mean, the Armor Tarek one, that is a moment that I don't think he's gonna recover, and that I don't think he's ever going to be playing with this Austin team unless if it's just a complete meaningless game. But yeah, I think Kip Keller might get another shot in this one. Whereas for the Colorado Rapids, well, they're not gonna have their two most important attackers in Diego Rubio and Daniel Yapi. So yes, there goes their chance in terms of uh, getting a resort and potentially maybe getting a goal in this one. So yeah, for Austin, this is a game that you got to say that they have to win. Like this against a Rapids team that it is incredibly shorthanded, and again, this comes off of a week that they have lost Jack Price for the remaining of the season. This is a must win for Austin FC. And I know it sounds crazy to say a team is in a must win mode, but when you are in the situation that Austin is in and them not really getting off to a good start of the season, this is a game that they have to win, especially when they're playing in front of their home faithful against a Rapids team that is one with not having a great start to the season and have injuries issue, and now pretty much have their entire attack being subtracted because of international duty. But moving on, we go to the other Texas team, the Houston Dynamo. They're going to be playing against NYCFC. It's kind of crazy to see the Dynamo seems to play against a Eastern Conference team every single week. Like they have played a lot of Eastern Conference team. I think they've already this is what the third Eastern Conference team that they play. Like the only team that I know they didn't play as an Eastern Conference opponent was Austin FC last week, but yeah, it's kind of crazy that this year I know every single team will play eight opponents across conference, but Houston have already played three so far, and we're only into week number 5 of the season. But they get to play another Eastern Conference team in NYCFC who has a 2-1-1 record and starting to look like a decent team against a Dynamo team that finally got their first win of the season against Austin. But all-time meeting, NYCFC does leads the all-time meeting 2-1 over Houston. Player on international duty, yeah, losing Coco Carrasquilla is going to be tough for this Houston team. He does so much of the dirty work in the midfield and can also be a creative player and even score some amazing goal for this Dynamo team. Then they also have guys like Castillo and Xavier Valdez not available. For NYCFC, Maxime Chenot and Ilinic is the only player that is missing for this NYCFC team. So yeah, this is a game that again, knowing the NYCFC has played really well in the last couple of games, how much is that because of the fact that they were playing at Yankee Stadium? I mean, both of those wins that they had was at Yankee Stadium, and that we know Yankee Stadium is a place that it's a graveyard for a road team to trying to get points. NYCFC just take advantage of the short field that is at Yankee Stadium. But now, what about now that they're going back on the road, which is a place that they have struggled so far this season, and that I will also say that with them kind of figuring it out, especially in the last game against DC, we'll see whether or not if they can do the same thing in this one, especially with the way that they're gonna once again face against a defense that is vulnerable in terms of conceding goals. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 6 games that's going to be finished off match week number 5. So moving on, we got Sporting KC versus the Seattle Sounders. So this is a game featuring a Sporting KC team that is still searching for their first win of the season and still kind of trying to get rid of the curse that they have in terms of goal scoring. I mean, I know they did finally score their first goals in the last week, but knowing the fact that they had multiple chances to score more in that game, they're still kind of suffering that bit of a curse. And it kind of doesn't help the fact that they have to play against a Sounders team that is looking to try to get another win. Though, one thing I will say for Sporting KC that is good news when they face against a Seattle team is the fact that Seattle is going to be once again decimated because of international duty. But overall, it's a 12-5-10 record that Seattle has, and I wrote Seattle twice here. That's actually really wrong. Um, Let me just correct that here. But yeah, it's a 12-5-10 that they have over Sporting KC. The only players that's missing on duty for Sporting KC is Mariano Johnese. But for Seattle, no Xavier Arriaga, no Reed Baker Whiting, no Nuhu, no Alex Rodon, no Raul Ruidiaz, and no Albert Vargas. And also, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't mention Christian Rodon as a player that is missing on international duty because I'm I'm pretty sure that he was selected by the U.S. For those Nations League game. And keep in mind, all these players that I put on the board as players on international duty is via the league website. And I know that there have been people saying that the league website have kind of put the wrong name in terms of who is actually on player on international duty and who is not. But as it stands, that is the amount of players that Seattle is not going to be have available, and that is some key players on this team that the Sounders will be missed. So yeah, this is an opportunity for Sporting KC, and again, this is a team that I mean, I really think if there is a team that the record doesn't show how they're actually not as bad as they are, it's going to be Sporting KC because I really think they played very well in the beginning of the season. It's just the goal scoring that's been the problem. I mean, if they can figure out that goal scoring, this team should be easily a team they're fighting for some of the top four spot in the Western Conference. But until they don't figure out that, they're going to continue to go on a winless run and continue to once again suffer the same problem that they had last season, which is getting off to a slow start and never able to recover from it. Moving on, in the next match, we got Minnesota versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. So I mentioned that victory against the Colorado Rapids and how big that is for the Loons on the road. Well, it's even bigger now, the fact that pretty much almost the whole team is going to be missing in this game because of international duty. But overall, it's a 5-3 and free record that Minnesota has over the Vancouver Whitecaps, who's coming into this game still searching for their first win. But like I said, for the Loons, no Kervin Arriaga, no Michael Boxall, no Bong Ihuane, no Kamar Lawrence, no Robin Ludd, no Joseph Rosales, and no Dane Sinclair as the all these players are on international duty. And again, there's certain teams that are just destined up because of players on international duty. Minnesota is probably one of the heavy hit team with again all those players are basically regular starters for this Loons team day in and day out. Well, maybe minus Joseph Rosales, but pretty much all of them are key contributor for this Minnesota team. For Vancouver, they won't have Jermaine Brown and Andres Cubas, which I think that's going to be tough for them because without Cubas, this Whitecaps team is definitely vulnerable on the defensive side. So yeah, again, this might be another game where again, I expect this is going to be similar to what I see with a lot of Minnesota performance this season, which is going to be another grind out kind of resort. And I don't mind that because, again, unless if Reynoso decided that, yeah, this is finally the time where he break his silence and decide to return this team, this is just going to be the style that this team is going to play, whether if they are very shorthanded like they are in this game or they're going to be in full strength in the foreseeable future. But that being said, moving on in the next one, we got Nashville versus FC Cincinnati. So, in terms of the all-time meeting, 2-2-0 that Nashville has against FC Cincinnati, and I'll always love to see this kind of matchup because there's kind of a rivalry between both of these teams, especially going back to the USL day. But especially, this is also a match that is one of the few matches where there really isn't a lot of players missing due to international duty. In fact, I had to double check this, but on the league website of players missing on international duty, I didn't see Nashville names on that page, and I don't know if this is actually true that Nashville is not missing any players due to international duty, but I'm assuming that, of course, is the case. And if that is, they're the only team to have not missed any players on international duty. Now, for FC Cincinnati, they won't have Marco Angulo and Junior Moreno in this team, and that's kind of tough because, Angulo it means a lot to this team too, especially in the midfield. And Junior Moreno, the guy that scored the two goals in the game against the Chicago Fire, but yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting game, and especially, I think this is also kind of a game that I would say that it's kind of a mouth-watering matchup without have to worry about players missing on international duty. I mean, yes, Cincinnati has some key players that's missing on international duty, but they still have that lethal front three in Vasquez, Brenner, and Lucho Acosta there. So I think this is definitely going to be one that glad that it's not being ruined because of players missing on international duties, and we'll see who, of course, is going to get the win coming out of this. But now moving on into the next one, we got RSL versus St. Louis City. So this is another matchup that I'm pretty sure a lot of people are looking forward to because they want to see whether or not if St. Louis can make it 5 in a row to start the season and can continue to extend the record of becoming the first MLS expansion team to win 5 straight games off the bat. Now it's not going to be easy because they are playing against RSL. 1-0-2 is the record, as this game will be 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. This of course is the first career meet or first ever meeting between both of these teams. For RSL, they won't have Beaver, Diego Luna, Brian Ojeda, and Rubio Rubin in this one. For St. Louis, they're actually going to be missing players, which I was kind of surprised because I thought with the way this St. Louis team, I didn't think that they were going to miss any players due to international duty, but apparently Kyle Hebert did get called up by the Canadian national team, and Perez also got called up by the youth national team of the U.S. So, yeah, overall, this is a game that, with how amazing start that St. Louis has had. Hopefully, I didn't just jinx them because of making that video, because, if you are very superstitious whenever you watch my video, you maybe would think that I basically just jinxed them because of them making that video. But that video was mainly because just talk about the record breaking run that they had. I mean, even if they lose this game, the record is still theirs in terms of the best start an expansion team has ever had in MLS history. But we'll see whether it can continue because they're playing against an RSL team that, I mean, how do you say this about RSL? The good news is they are coming into a week where they actually didn't play, so they won the bye week sweepstake. And that they get extra rest, but they haven't really looked that good this season. Maybe besides that, I mean, even though in the win that they had against Vancouver, they pretty much got dominated for part of that game. So yeah, this should be a very interesting kind of game, and again, a game that we'll see whether or not if RSL is going to be that first team to hand St. Louis their first loss or even their first draw of their expansion season. But moving on, we got LAFC versus FC Dallas. So this is the one of the two 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific that is going to happen. LAFC 2-1 and 0, while Dallas 2-1 and 1, and in terms of the all-time meeting 4-2 and 2 in favor of LAFC. Player on international duty. LAFC, of course, are going to miss some key players. You got Dennis Bawanga, Jose Cifuentes, Ninel Maldonado, and Diego Palacio not available in this one. And losing Bawanga is going to be huge because he has really been a driving force for this team in terms of goal scoring on the attack. Although I will say that they definitely have some different weapons too. I mean, at least they still have Carlos Vela and Mahalo Poku. They're on the attack there that can be lethal as well. But Bawanga has definitely been advertised in terms of him performing very well this season for this LAFC team. For Dallas, they won't have Carrera and Nolan Norris coming into this one, mostly just academy guys. So yeah, they're not going to really miss any players on international duty, which is kind of surprising because I also swear that I saw Paul Arriola name on the U.S. men's national team Nations League roster before, but apparently he's not selected by the U.S. According to the league website. So they're gonna at least have all their weapons on the attacking end, and that they need it because they're facing against an LAFC team that they, even though with players that they're gonna be missing. This is definitely a game that they're looking to trying to get another win and just continue to solidify that Bank of California Stadium, or BMO Stadium as it is called now. Still trying to get used to the name, is basically a place that is it's a graveyard for teams that is trying to get points on the road. And then finally, moving into the final game of match week number 5 is the game that I'm actually going to attend. I mean, I can't believe I'm actually thinking about attending this one, even though I know it's an international duty or international break, and I usually don't want like attending games on it of seeing my team play on international break because I do will miss seeing some of the best player play in the team. But in this one, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Toronto is going to be very hampered in this one in terms of international break, and that again, if you want to say that this is a game where the Quakes maybe have a chance to win, or at least I've seen them win in person. This could be a chance to do so. Now, the Quakes 2-0 and 2, while Toronto 1-2 and 1. And in terms of the all-time meeting, the Quakes still leads the all-time meeting 6-7 and 5 over TFC, and they have had a decent record over TFC at least for the past couple of years. It's been a while since they have lost to Toronto in league play. But in terms of player on international duty, it's another game where they're not going to have Jamero Montero and Miguel Trioko. But for TFC, no Iowa Canola. Well, it kind of really doesn't matter because I think he's injured. No Mark Anthony Kane, no Richie Larea, no Jonathan Osorio, all those guys with the Canadian national team, and then no Thomas Romero. Now, the one name that I'm surprised are not on that list is Federico Benedeschi because I thought for sure the Italian national team have called up Benedeschi for their Euros qualifier, but apparently that's not the case. Looks like he is going to be available in that one, and that is definitely a big addition for them, and just a big sigh of relief too because he's literally the offense for this TFC team. I mean, knowing all these players that we mentioned on this list that's going to be missing in this game, he's literally going to be the one that they're going to have to target him, and this is where the Quakes are going to try their best in terms of shutting him down. Because if you shut him down, then you pretty much just shut down this TFC attack. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of the preview of all 14 of these games. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of all 14 of these games, and let me know in the comments below your prediction for all 14 of these games. Don't be surprised some of the prediction that if you made probably won't come true because again, it is really hard to predict when you have this situation where players are missing due to international duty. And I won't be surprised that we will see some upsets this week, but is it really an upset when you have games where teams are able to capitalize against teams that are basically missing half of their roster because of international duty? But there uh, as always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.